saw you, didn't care about the party. Wishing all of these people would just head out so we can talk. I could tell by the smile when you asked where to write your name on my wall. Wish I met you at 16, wish I could have taken you to prom. Better late than never, I see us spending days together. Sketching pictures up and singing songs, wondering what I did before you came along. Oh, you're just what I need, the best part of me. Somehow it keeps getting better. I waited forever, but better late than never.
Hey guys, welcome to Bookoplathon vlog number 1. So it's now midnight at the end of the first day of Bookoplathon. I had quite a busy day today. Tuesdays are generally quite busy for me because I have to edit my vlog and then also do candle stuff. So Tuesday may actually be my busiest day of the week, which is a weird day to be really busy. But I did want to start this vlog off today. I mean, technically it's tomorrow because it's past midnight, but I wanted to start off on day 1 of the Bookoplathon because this is the first ever readathon I've hosted. I mean, I know that I did the 48-hour round, but that was kind of like the planning that went into it and how it was going to operate and getting the roll drops up on time and stuff. That was work. Like, it took me time to put that together, and then actually like doing a 2-day readathon is kind of exhausting because you have to be present for like 2 days. And then as the readathon was actually happening, I was organizing people to come in and do Twitter takeovers and stuff. But this is the first proper like long period of time readathon that I've ever hosted, as in exclusively hosted, created and everything, and not just co-hosted. Yeah, I wanted to start on day 1. I'm currently reading the first book on my September Bookopoly TBR, and that is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. So for my Bookopoly TBR, I don't even know, is it technically on my Bookoplathon TBR, because this is actually my punishment for not finishing August Bookopoly. This is really weird for me to be hosting my own readathon based on my own TBR game, because aside from actually running the readathon, I'm not actually doing anything different in terms of reading. I'm still just reading my usual TBR. But yeah, this was my punishment read. I didn't finish August's Bookopoly TBR, so I had to pull a punishment prompt, and that was to read a book over 500 pages. So I thought, well, you know, I already had 2 books that totaled 2,000 pages just on their own, that I would add another chunky adult epic fantasy. And I'm currently on page 158 and it's only midnight on day 1, so I'm doing pretty well. I'm 23 pages ahead of schedule. To stay on schedule, on track to complete this enormous TBR, I have to read 135 pages per day. I'm hoping whenever possible to read over that amount so that I'm always a step in front. Then if something happens, if like, I don't know, like I see a friend and I take a day or a couple of days off reading, it's not going to set me back, because not only do I want to complete the TBR to complete it, I'm actually really excited about this TBR. I think of the 9 books that are on there, 5 of them I'm very excited to read, and the other 3 I still want to read them, but I'm not like super excited to read them. So yeah, it's a really good TBR and I want to get through it all. So Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, I have skipped ahead a little bit in the Cosmere because I'm hosting the Stormlight read along, but when I posted that announcement, you guys said that I should probably read Warbreaker before I read the Stormlight archive. So then I posted my Bookopoly TBR and said that you guys had said that, and then you guys said that I only had to read this book after the first book in the Stormlight archive. So thanks guys, you're just making my life difficult at this point. This is currently a standalone, however there is eventually going to be a sequel. I'm not sure when it's going to be released. I'm not even sure it's known roughly when it's going to be released yet, but there will be at least one more book in this series at some point. I actually, 158 pages in, don't really know anything about the plot at this point, but I can tell you a little bit about the characters. So we have 4 key characters in here. 2 of them are princesses, and they are the oldest and the youngest in this royal family of a country called, I don't remember. I'm just gonna have to live with not remembering the name of this country. To be fair, the story doesn't really take place in that country, which would be why. But the eldest of these 4 siblings, Vivenna, is destined to marry the God King. There was a treaty signed 20 years ago that she would go and marry the God King, and the reason for this is that her family used to be the royal families of, is it called Halandrolin or Halandron? Halandrolin? It's literally said it like 50 times, but now that I have to pronounce it, there we go, Halandron. So they used to be the royal family family of Halandren. However, there was something called, oh my god, why is this so hard? Okay, there was something called the Many War. I'm glad that I tabbed. This is why I tabbed. There was something called the Many War, and someone seized control of Halandren. So the royal family left and they set up a kingdom somewhere else. So the people of Halandren want to reintroduce the original royal family back into the no royal line of Halandren. These two countries are kind of on the brink of war with each other. The people of Halandren see the other country where the princesses are from as rebels, and I believe that is because they, one, ran away and started a kingdom somewhere else, and two, believe in different gods. So Vivenna is supposed to go marry this god king. However, her father, the king, is quite aware that the country is at war, and he really doesn't want to send her because then she can be used as a bargaining chip against him in the future. So instead of sending Vivenna, he sends the youngest one, Ciri. Now Ciri is the useless sibling. Her oldest sister's supposed to marry the god king, her brother's going to be heir to the kingdom, her other sister is a monk, and she is just kind of the spare sibling. So when her father decides that she's the one who's going to go marry the god king, she's very surprised. She's had no training for this, she knows nothing about the country of Halandren, and she has to go marry this god king. So the way that the magic system works in this book is that people draw on the colours. There's two different types of magical people. We have the returned, who in Halandren are the gods, and that means that they have died once and then they're taken in Halandren and raised to this godlike status. They critique art pretty much, and also listen to petitions from the people. The other type of magic people are awakeners, and everybody has something called breath in this. Most people have one breath, and it's also been referred to as like your soul. People who are gods have tons of breath. There's also things called different heightenings, so how many breaths you have depends which heightening you are. So I think I've just recently read a thing where it says if you have 50 breaths, you're on like the first heightening, 200 for the second, and 500 for the third, and I think it goes all the way up to 9, but the only person who is on the 9th heightening is the god king. So the way that the awakeners use magic is they can use a number of their breaths to animate a lifeless object. The more human-like it looks, the less breaths it takes to animate, and also to do this you have to draw on colour. So that is the reason why the country where the princesses are from doesn't have any colour, and Halandren is this very bright, very garish place where the people are not very modest, they dress extravagantly, they live in a lot of luxury. So it's kind of these two very different ways of living and very different countries. Now another one of our characters in here is Lightsong. Now Lightsong is interesting because he is one of the gods, which means that he has previously died during a heroic act and he's been reborn, but he knows nothing of his old life. So he kind of just lounges around his palace. Every god has their own palace in the sector of the city, and he is also an atheist. He doesn't believe in his own religion, so he doesn't think he has any power. He's very sarcastic, he's very, very funny, and he just lounges around in his palace, soaking up the luxury, being sarcastic and shirking responsibilities wherever he can. Now the last character hasn't been mentioned very much, to the point where I can't remember his name, but we do start the book with him. So he is called Vasha, and he, I believe, is the immortal trying to undo the mistakes he made hundreds of years ago that is detailed in the synopsis. I don't know much about him aside from that he is an awakener, and he starts off the book in the prologue by taking the breaths from someone else. So if you want more breaths, they have to be given to you freely by somebody else. You can't steal breath, however you can buy them. And as I mentioned earlier, the more breaths that you have, the higher up the scale of heightenings you are, and also the easier it is for you to animate objects because you have more breath to give, because you cannot get rid of all of your breath. If you use all of your breath, you are then breathless and is what is known as a drab. So that was a very long explanation. Don't really know what the plot is about at this point, but I do think it is going to have something to do with the fact that these two countries are on the brink of war. The little inklings of the plot that I have so far is that Vivenna has decided that she is going to go and save her sister, because the country that the princesses are from consider the people of Halandren to be heathens and the god king to be the worst of them all. And then the only other elements of plot I've deduced so far is that Lightsong is having prophetic dreams. Well, his priests believe that his dreams are prophetic. He doesn't believe in his own religion, so he doesn't think that his dreams are prophetic, but he is regularly dreaming of Halandren burning. There we have it. That is all I know about what Warbreaker is about. I'm 158 pages into it so far. It reminds me more of Elantris than it does the Final Empire, and a lot of you guys said that you think that this is the easiest Brandon Sanderson to get into, the easiest to understand, and also really fast paced. But honestly, I'm struggling with the magic system in here much more than I struggled with the Final Empire. Just wrapping my head around it, I think it's because it focuses on colour and also sound. I'm not great with sound, just generally, and also books that have a lot of colour in don't do it for me. Like writers that write using colour, I haven't read it, but I know that Stephanie Garber does this in Caraval. And there's also, is it synesthesia? Synesthesia? There's something that some people have where they, what do they do? There's something that some people can do where they kind of think in colour. So looking at a person or something, they will like assign them to a colour, or they'll make them think of a colour. I think it's called synesthesia, but I can't say it very well. I'm enjoying it enough so far. I have it sectioned off to finish by Saturday, so I got to read this in 5 days to stay on track. I'm currently 23 pages ahead of schedule, and I think I'm going to go and read another couple of chapters before I go to bed. So I've been asked repeatedly to make a video on how I annotate books, and I can't really do it. I mean, I could, but it would be pretty much a waste of time and pretty pointless because the video would be very, very short. So I thought I would just let you guys know how I annotate books here. So first off, I only actually annotate the occasional book, and they tend to be adult epic fantasy. The only reason that I annotate is to mark things that I may need to reference back to later. Now, I can do this in standalones. I'm currently tabbing up Warbreaker, but it tends to be more helpful in series, because if I have a few months in between reading the first and second book, if I want to reference something that's mentioned before, I have my tabs and I can find what I'm looking for a lot quicker than I would be able to otherwise. Also, the way that my memory works is if I write anything down or if I see things, it's hard to explain. I don't think I have like a photographic memory or an eidetic memory or anything, but the way I remember things is the way that things are laid out on a page. So reading things over and over again, and also like writing things down or copying, really helps me to remember. So the way that I used to do my exams when I took exams in like school, college and university is I used to memorize textbooks. So when a question would come up, I would remember exactly on the page where that was and be able to like work it out from there what the information was that I needed. So just acknowledging something and putting a tab in really helps me to remember it. So if I see a reference back to it in like later in the book or later in the series, I will remember putting the tab in and also kind of what it says. So I do have a pouch that has all of my sticky tabs in. They do come in these cardboard envelopes. I don't have a full one to show you. They're from Paper Chase, but they fall off this cardboard really easily, which is why I have a bag of loose tabs, but you get like 12 colors in them, so they're really, really helpful. But I normally write my key on these big yellow post-it notes, which should be in my tab bag, but they're not. So I have the Final Empire with me to reference, and I've just stuck the tabs in the front of the book in the order that they are on this key, because these books are by the same author. I imagine that I will be tabbing the same things, and so I'm just using the same system. I don't write in my books. I think if I ever reread them, it will be incredibly distracting. I have written in a couple of books before, normally that I was sending to other people as like a traveling book situation. If I ever write in my books, I will have an additional copy that I write notes in and a different copy for reading, because I just cannot imagine trying to read a book that I'd also written in. I feel like that would be incredibly distracting. I have 12 different colors of sticky note, but they don't mean anything. I know that some people write down on the inside of the card, like blue means sad moments, black means plot points and things like that. I don't do that. I choose my color palette based on the book. So that is why my Final Empire ones are so pleasing to look at, because I used blues, gray and black, because the book is blue, gray and black. So as I don't have a key in Warbreaker, I'm just going to show you the key that I have in the Final Empire. Okay, so as I mentioned, these are really, really basic, which is why I'm not making a video on it. This is my key. These are all the things I mark. So magic, Brandon Sanderson typically has very complicated magic systems. So any reference to how the magic system works will be marked with this color. Politics, anything that's kind of the political elements of the world, any scheming, any kind of, I don't know, higher ups talking about what they're going to do and the reasons they're going to do it, they get marked with this color. The world, this can be anything notable geographical that I think is going to come up at some point. This can also be like customs of the world. So if a certain country does a certain thing for whatever reason, the color for world in this one is blue. And as you can see there, we have quite a few blue tabs, especially at the beginning. This book is heavily about religion at the moment, so all of that is coming under the world. And there's a key difference in between the way the two countries view religions. So the world and its customs are quite important in this one especially. So in the Final Empire, grey is plot. This is anything at all that happens that I think is going to be relevant to the plot. Now, I believe that I'm quite good at noticing things like this. I have been told many times that people don't understand how I pick up on these things, things early in a book and then see how they come to fruition later on. So this is anything that I think is going to come into the plot later on, and anywhere that I think that the author is doing groundwork for reveals and events later on. And then finally we have history. So in both of these books, a lot of the plot is to do with things that went on many years ago. In the Final Empire, at the beginning of every chapter, we have the accounts from a couple of historical figures, and this book is mainly about the Dark Lord who won a war 1,000 years ago, I think, and is still in power. So the events of this book are partially tied to what happened 1,000 years ago. In here we have the Many War, which ended, I can't remember how many years ago it ended, but there are repercussions of the Many War, and the Many War is relevant to what is happening in the plot. So this is for any of those historical elements, any things that happened in the past that are currently influencing the future, and just generally any information about the history, because the history does tend to play a big part in what is going on in high fantasy and epic fantasy in general, to be fair. So that is it. That is how I annotate. Sometimes I will annotate on characters. However, I've noticed in Brandon Sanderson, I don't really feel the need to annotate things about characters. They normally fall under something like history or plot if I am annotating character related things. Sometimes I will annotate quotes, which, to be honest, I thought about doing it in Warbreaker because Lightsong, who is the god, is absolutely hilarious, but I would pretty much be tabbing everything that he said because he's just so fucking funny. So I decided not to bother doing it at all because it would literally be the entire book just full of quotes. If I'm annotating something like when I did House of Earth and Blood, I did have a section especially for the romantic elements just because they're my favorite, and sometimes like I will just pick up a quote of Mist and Fury and read those two chapters. I think it's 55 and 56 I normally read because they're a couple of the best chapters in the book and it deals with the romance. So if I mark things like that, it's normally to refer back to at a later date when I'm feeling pretty shitty. But yeah, that is that's all you need to know about how I annotate. It's pretty simple. It's just for me to reference back to when I need to. It's nothing like super complicated or anything. Literally just use tabs and the key at the front. And yeah, that's all I have to tell you right now. I'm currently on page 210 of Warbreaker. I'm also currently running sprints on Discord, so I'll be reading quite a bit more of this tonight, which is what I'm gonna go and get back to.
Good days and bad days, I know I can call you, 'cause you always have answers to problems that I could never solve. Never met green eyes, I love to get lost in this much.
Hey guys, so it's just gone midnight on Friday night and Maddie from Book Browsing Blog is currently running a 24-hour readathon for Bookoplathon. So she's taken over the Bookoplathon Twitter and she's also got a YouTube live happening at some point in this 24 hours, which I will be popping into. And she's doing like Discord sprints and an Instagram live sprint and all kinds of fun stuff. I do have a full schedule now. Every single Saturday there will be a 24-hour readathon for the Bookoplathon. I will put, I think I can fit the schedule here. I have 4 amazing booktubers who are hosting 24-hour readathons, and thank you so much to you guys for helping me out. I am going to be participating in Maddie's for just a couple of hours. I am going to go get some sleep because the point of the 24-hour readathons for me is that I have a whole day where I don't have to check all the notifications on the Twitter and do stuff and things like that. So yeah, I'm going to participate for just a couple of hours because I'm 75 pages away from the edge of Warbreaker and I really want to finish it tonight. So Maddie's currently running a 55-minute sprint on Twitter, which I should be participating in and reading, and I'm gonna go do that now. I see us spending days together, sketching pictures up and singing songs, wondering what I did before you came along. Oh, you're just what I need, the best part of me. Somehow it keeps getting better. I waited forever. All the love I made and lost before we met seems so far gone. I wish it Hey guys, So I'm having a little bit of a nightmare today. I overslept massively. It's now 4:30. I haven't just woken up or anything, like it wasn't that bad. But today is my filming day. I have to film 2 videos today and I finally reached a point. It's taken 3.5 years. I finally reached a point where I have literally no ideas of what to film. I've had a couple of cool suggestions on Twitter. This boy has been out all morning and now that he's home he wants attention. But I've had a few suggestions on Twitter. One of them is going to be really fun and I am going to do it, but I don't have the supplies to do it right now, so that doesn't help me today. I have finally just decided what videos I'm going to be filming, but it is 4:20 and I'm joining Maddie's live reading sprints in 20 minutes. So I thought I would make a little bit of a progress. I'd come and do a vlog update and then try and get my shit together today. It's a really haphazard thrown together day. But last night, just after 2 AM, I did finish Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. I'm not really surprised. I was wondering whether it was going to come out at 4 stars at one point. However, the way everything tied up, I really loved. Brandon Sanderson is really good at kind of misleading you. Like, you know something's going to happen at some point and he does a really good job of leaving all the clues there. Like, he really plainly writes all this stuff down, but he doesn't do anything that makes you believe in one over the other. And then he tends to take the less obvious route when he's tying everything together, and it's like, nope, that thing that you thought that was kind of the obvious thing, so I'm not going to do that. The way that all of the characters were wrapped up, I really enjoyed. I do really like the characters of Vasha, Suzabron. I love Lightsong. Lightsong is my favorite character in this book. I do also really love Ciri and Vivenna. I do like her. This book has a lot about religion in it. It is very much about the 2 religions of these 2 countries and how they differ, and it's very interesting because these religions are essentially a branch of the same one, and it reminds me a lot of things like Christianity versus Islam and Judaism, where everybody believes in the same God but they all believe different things about the same gods, and the different religions have adapted so that the core belief is the same but it's a little bit different. So the country where Vivenna and Ciri are from, they have one god called Oster or Ostra, and he is like God. So if you think of like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they just have the one god. And then the country of Halandren has a pantheon of gods. However, they still believe that the pantheon of gods that they have were created by the one god, Ostra. However, the place where Ciri and Vivenna are from believe that the returned are unnatural, they shouldn't be preserved, they're not gods. So that's what I mean about that, and I do think that it is really interesting considering that Brandon Sanderson himself, I think he is he a Mormon? Let me just check that. I know that he's from one of the more extreme branches of Christianity. Yes, Brandon Sanderson is a Mormon. Now, I am a Christian, I'm a Catholic, I'm not an actively practicing Catholic, as you guys have probably noticed, but I was raised Catholic, I'm christened as a Catholic. But things like Mormons and the Amish, I don't know too much about those branches of Christianity. I did think it was very interesting how the different religions were portrayed in here and how they are kind of questioned and critiqued, and how it kind of represents this feeling that all religions are kind of valid, but it also probes you to question your religion a little bit. And obviously this is all fantasy, it's all fantasy stuff, but to me, as somebody who has been raised in Christianity and Catholicism and is not a practicing Catholic, the reason that I'm not religious is that I'm very logic minded, as I mention all the time, and I think about why I can't just blindly believe in something that I have no proof of. I'm not that kind of person. I don't believe in things unless there's concrete evidence that they exist. I do like to hypothesize that maybe fantastical things exist, because a lot of folk tales and fairy tales where fantasy stories originated from are rooted in some sort of truth. And how did these stories come about if there is not even a tiny element of truth in them? So that's the reason why I'm not religious, and that's why I really appreciated how this book questions religion and looks into the why do we believe these things and the roots of religion, I kind of want to say. Thoroughly enjoyed this. In terms of my ranking, because a lot of people have said that they enjoyed this and Elantris more than they enjoyed Mistborn. Now, Mistborn is still my favourite Sanderson book so far, or The Final Empire is, because that's the only one I've read, but I did enjoy this one more than Elantris, so my ranking so far would be Final Empire at the top, then Warbreaker, then Elantris, and later this month we will see how The Way of Kings comes in. So this was a gift from Michelle from Books Michelle, so thank you so much much for gifting this to me. This was a birthday gift, and for Bookopoly it was my punishment book for not completing my August TBR. So I do kind of want to read my Bookopoly books in the order that I wrote them this month. The reason for that is that I have 2 parts of Way of Kings left to read, and also The Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, and they are quite evenly spaced throughout my TBR, so I think that that's a good way to read them with other things in between. However, my first role for Bookopoly was an ebook or an audiobook, and for that I selected The Ship of Magic, and I don't want to read 2 chunky adult epic fantasies back to back. So I'm going with my second role for my next book, which was a middle grade, and for that I'm reading When Life Gives You Mangoes by Readathon. This is an arc that was sent to me by Pushkin Press, so thank you so much Pushkin for sending this my way. It is released in the UK on the, I think it's the 4th of October, it just says October 2020 here, but in the UK October is Black History Month, so that is why I have 3 October releases from Pushkin that are all by Black authors. So I have only read 1 chapter of this so far. I've been having a hell of a day, so while I had lunch, because by the time I woke up it was time for lunch, not breakfast, I read 1 chapter, so I've read 14 pages of this, so I can't tell you any more than what the synopsis is. But this is about a girl called Clara who lives in a village called Sycamore, and she has lost her memories of things that happened a summer ago, and she has no idea why. She's starting to grow distant from her best friend, and from reading the first chapter I can say that her friend is a bit of a bitch, so I'm not surprised. And things start to change. Like, the catalyst for this novel is a girl arriving from England that I'm assuming Clara is going to grow close to, and something has the key to unlocking her memories as well. So this one is 220 pages. To stay on track for the readathon I only have to make it to page 25 today. However, I am trying to build up a little bit of pages in the bank, let's say, because I do think that Ship of Magic at least is going to be the bit where I start to slow down. So if I can get myself ahead as much as possible up to starting Ship of Magic, then that will be really helpful. So even though I only have to get to page 25 today, I want to make it at least halfway through this, which is 110 pages, and that actually shouldn't be too challenging because it's a middle grade. Like, it took me 5 minutes or 10 minutes to read 15 pages, so I should be good. That being said, I'm gonna go get ready for the live show. I have 12 minutes to go and set up for that. It's only 30 minutes of reading sprints, so it's not too much, and while I'm sprinting I will be reading some of this, and then I'm hopefully gonna get these videos that I've been stressing about filmed. Hey, so you guys will be happy to know that I did manage to sort my life out earlier, and I got the videos filmed that I had to, and all of that jazz. It is now past midnight and I have already finished When Life Gives You Mangoes by Readathon. I gave this one 4 stars. It follows a girl called Clara who lives in a village called Sycamore Hill on this island, and my camera battery is flashing because of course it is. That's better. So where was I? We follow a girl called Clara who lives in a village on an island, and she is having difficulty remembering things that happened a summer ago. Her best friend Gaina is being really mean to her about this, saying that she forgets things all the time and saying that she can't do things because she'll just forget, even though the only thing that she's actually forgot is this one thing that happened last summer. So a girl comes from England called Rudy. She is the relative of one of the residents of this village, and this village is very much like a community. They all pretty much treat each other like family. They all look out for each other. There's a very strong sense of community in here. However, Clara has noticed that the adults in the community do seem to be talking about her a lot. Some of them are quite mean to her, and some of them keep telling her parents that they need to do something about her, but she's not really sure why this is. So that is pretty much all I can tell you about this. It is quite a short book. It is also a children's book, so it didn't take me long to read this at all, maybe 2 hours reading total. And at its heart, it is a contemporary. We follow Clara while she's like playing games of make-believe with her friends and exploring this island that she lives on. She has a fear of water from the summer that she's forgotten, and she doesn't know why that is either. But yeah, it's pretty much about her uncovering her locked memories, and her uncle, who I mentioned is the person that they call a witch doctor, he has a lot of stigma surrounding him. The community doesn't like him, and it is also about the reasons for that and about why he has been pretty much exiled from the community and spends all of his time isolated in his home. So I gave this 4 stars. I liked it. I really like the writing style of this. Readathon does not talk down to you, so as an adult reading a children's book, it was good to read. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel like a children's story, and I also found it quite atmospheric. I really enjoyed learning about this community that Clara lives in. There's quite a big twist in here. Now, when I read the synopsis of this and what this is about, it reminded me of the synopsis of a very popular young adult book, which I have also read. So I thought that the plot twist in this may be similar to the plot twist of that very popular young adult book, and it is. I'm not going to tell you what what the book is, because then if you've read that book, you will immediately be spoiled for the plot twist in this. Before I even went into this, I did think that the synopsis did sound pretty similar. So when the plot twist was similar, it took me a little bit by surprise, and I like how it was done, and it did like make me feel something, but I wasn't overly surprised because I did like make that link just from the synopses of the two books. So yeah, the thing about this is that it's contemporary and middle grade, and I don't love contemporary and I don't love middle grade. I only read a select few books from each of those categories. So for both of them to be in one book, I automatically didn't think that this was going to blow me away. I do think that it is a good book, and I think that if you like children's books and or you like contemporary, then you will really enjoy this one, and I still enjoyed it. It's just not my new favorite thing, and it didn't blow me away because it's just not the kind of thing that I'm typically interested in. If it was one or the other, so if it was a children's book or it was a contemporary, then maybe I'd feel a little bit stronger about it, but as it stands, I like it, I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's going to stick with me or anything like that. So now that this is done, I'm not sure how many pages ahead I am now, because I only count my pages and my progress at the end of the day, and the end of the day for me is when I go to sleep. I don't know if I mentioned it's like 12:30 now. Maddie has finished her 24-hour readathon, so I'll go back to the Bookoplathon Twitter and everything eventually. She did such a great job, Maddie. If you're watching this, thank you so much for the 24-hour readathon that you did. It was like super interactive, and I know that a whole ton of people had a whole lot of fun, so thank you so much. And if you guys don't know who Maddie is, I would definitely urge you to check out her channel. She has a TBR game called Dart Attack, which is where she throws darts at prompts. It's really funny. She makes great content aside from that as well, but I know a lot of you guys watching my channel will really like TBR games, so you guys should go check her out. But I did oversleep, which I mentioned to you guys earlier, so I'm not necessarily tired right now. I'm going to guess I'm around 190 pages ahead of schedule, but my next book is going to be The Ship of Magic, and you guys know I always struggle to get through the first section of Robin Hobb's books. So I think what I'm going to do now is read my graphic novel, because if I read this, I will still have 3 other books that aren't adult epic fantasy on my Bookoplathon TBR, so I still have one to insert in between every other book that I read, and they are all a little bit chunkier than the book I've just read as well. So I'm going to pick up Angel After the Fall. I reckon I can finish this pretty quickly. It's a graphic novel, and when I'm done with this, I will be around 350 pages ahead on my TBR, which gives me a little bit of wriggle room when I start Ship of Magic. So for my Bookoplathon TBR, this was a chance card. I can't really tell you what this is about. This graphic novel is the first, I think it's the first, of the canon Buffyverse comics. As far as I'm aware, I'm not sure about the newer ones because it's still ongoing, I believe, but Joss Whedon has either written or approved the storylines in these comics, and they are all canon. So this starts off directly after the last episode of Angel ends, because it ends in the worst place ever. It's a massive cliffhanger. I don't want to say anything in case any of you guys plan on watching any of the shows, but it does end on a massive cliffhanger, and this starts off literally a second after the show fades to black. I never wanted to read the Buffyverse comics because there are so many of them, and getting my hands on these is going to be an expensive endeavor. But considering I was rewatching the Buffyverse anyway because Curtis had never seen it before, I decided that when I got to the end of the shows, I would pick up the comics. So this is going to be a long time me reading these. There are so many comics. We start off with the continuation of Angel, and then we go into Buffy season 8 and 9, and I think they're at least up to 10 now. I just own the one, so I'm going to go read this. I've been desperate to read it since I finished the show a few weeks ago. This was also a birthday gift from Claire, so thank you so much to Claire for sending this my way. I probably won't be able to tell you too much about this because it's not only like spoilers for the comics, it's spoilers for all of the shows that have come before it, and including Buffy, that's 12 seasons of television. I don't even really like the art style in the comics. I'm just reading them because it's the Buffyverse and it is canon and it's a continuation of something that I love. Buffy is my favorite TV show ever. So yeah, when I've read this, probably won't be able to tell you too much about it. That being said, I'm gonna go read this now, and when I'm done, I'll let you know what I think. Maybe tomorrow, depends how I feel when I finish it. But yeah, I'm gonna go read Angel. Hey guys, good morning. It is 11 AM now. It's Sunday morning. I did finish Angel last night, but I'm going to let you know my thoughts on that a little bit later. I did actually enjoy it, but today I have actually been awake since 6:30 AM. I woke up, I got out of bed, I decided I was staying up. I don't know why I did it. But I've actually started another book now as well. I've started The Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I've only read the prologue, so I'm only like 3 pages into it, but I have made a start on that. I am going to update you on all of my reading a little bit later on in the day. I'm just popping in now to let you guys know that I'm heading out very soon. It's very spontaneous. Did not plan on going out today. There's a couple of things I could do with staying in and doing, to be honest, but it's rare that I'm up this early ever. Never mind on a weekend when I don't have to work. And I have actually built up quite a stack of comics in my wish list that I would quite like. Some of them are continuations of series that I've already started, so I'm going to be looking for Angel After the Fall Volume 2 today because it is out of stock on Amazon anyway, so I would have to order it from Waterstones. I'm not sure if my comic book store will even stock that series because it's quite an old one now, and I'm not sure like how popular it is. Literally the only thing that I want is comics. I don't even feel like browsing today. There's really nothing that I want to look at, but I have been meaning to go look at comics for quite some time, so I'm gonna head to my local comic book store. I'm driving an hour away just to buy comics, and there's no guarantee that the ones that I want are even going to be in stock when I get there, but I do try to support my local comic book store as much as I can. They do have a rewards program as well, so even though they're expensive because it's like £15 per volume, I do get points on all of my purchases, and I think I have at least, I either have £9 or £12 I want to say in credit that I'm definitely going to spend today if I grab all of the comics that I want. So I'm going to do that, and then I've also been wanting to look at homeware at TK Maxx. I didn't really want to do that now. I wanted to wait until my sofa and rug arrived. My rug I think is coming on Monday. My dad's coming on Tuesday to take away my old sofa, and then on Wednesday my new sofa's arriving. So that's the reason that I wanted to stay home and get some things done today, so that I was ready for all of that, because I don't know when I'm going to work amongst all of this chaos because it's going to be quite disruptive. But yeah, tangent aside, just thought that I would let you guys know that I'm going to be heading out because I just really want some comics.
Settling in, settling down, falling in love, not falling out. I keep on falling in. Each of us both done in a crown, a crown, a crown, a crown. A king and a queen royally bound. Yeah. Both called it from the beginning. Called it. Knew that the right to be nice. Knew that the right to be nice. We do what we gotta do.
Hey guys, so I'm back from my shopping trip. It was very, very disappointing. So as I mentioned to you guys, I was going for comics. My comic book store did not have a single one of the comics I was looking for. I was looking for Blackbird Volume 1, which I've been meaning to get for some time. I wanted the first volume of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot, and they don't have it. They had volumes 2 and 3. They also had the special Hellmouth edition that they've done, and then the Angel counterpart to that. I wanted Angel After the Fall Volume 2. They didn't have that. I knew that that one was a long shot because it was released in 2007, and it's quite a small comic book store, but they didn't have that either. They had a couple of Angel bind-ups, and the other thing that I only kind of maybe wanted was Rat Queens Volume 4, and I was only really going to get that if I got everything else just while I was there, and they didn't have that either. So I went out for comic books. I came back without a single one, so I'm going to place an order online because this is the second time in the last couple of months I've been to my comic book store and they haven't had the Buffy Volume 1. They have everything else. So I'm just going to place an order online. I think I mentioned earlier that I can buy them cheaper online anyway. I just prefer to buy from my comic book store, and they can order them in for me and then reserve them, but it's not really local to me. It's over an hour away, so I only really get into the city. It's in New York. I only really get there like once every couple of months. So I tried to support my comic book store. Didn't do a good job. I can't order online either because they don't have, I don't think they have a web store at all, or if they do, it is a very basic one where they only have select titles in stock online. My other thing that I wanted was homeware. So I went to TK Maxx in York. It has 4 aisles of homeware and most of it is kitchen stuff, and the things I was looking for were cushions, throws, a couple of candles, which I know you guys may seem surprised. I'll explain myself in a second. And then I just wanted to look at the ornaments and stuff because, as I mentioned, I have stuff arriving next week, and with me like actually painting the fireplace, I've started to work on the living room. So yeah, they had 4 aisles, so I didn't buy anything from there. But then we did have a look on Google Maps, and there is a retail park just outside of York called Monk's Cross. We went to the TK Maxx there, which has a whole HomeSense floor on it. It was much more expensive. Still didn't get much though. I did, however, get one of the things I wanted, which was a couple of candles. However, I did kind of want pillar candles because I want to do this decorative thing on the fireplace, which I'm sure when I eventually do it, you will see it. But I'm going to get a couple of slate placemats and put, I don't know what I'm going to do with the other one because I only really need need one, but I want to put it like on the corner of the hearth, and I want to create like a dripping candle effect with pillar candles. So essentially I'll just burn a whole ton of pillar candles and have it like a melty, half dripping wax display on the slate. So I want the slate so that it's not dripping onto my fireplace. But I ended up with these two candles. I've never had this brand before. I don't think I've bought candles from TK Maxx for a very long time, but I got papaya and coconut, which is a very fruity scent. There's some vanilla in here as well, so it's like a sweet coconut with a hint of like mango and papaya. And I got crisp apple and pear because this is a fall scent. They didn't have a whole ton of fall scents in. They mainly just have like apple and apple spice. But this smells so good. It's a little bit strange that I buy candles from elsewhere, but as you can tell, these are enormous. I'll just get one of my candles as a reference. So this is the biggest candle that I bought, and this is my candle for reference of size. So I prefer bigger candles because they take longer to burn. I kind of feel guilty. The amount of time that these burn, you get like 30 to 40 hours on this candle, but I'm gonna get a lot more hours out of this one. I can't make them this big yet because for a candle this big, first off, I don't have the jars, my wicks aren't long enough, and that also you can't really see. They are double wicked, and I haven't worked out how to double wick yet. It is something that I could do, but for the sake of me just burning a candle, I'd rather just buy a double wicked one than have to go through all the stress of trying to figure out everything that I needed, like the jars, the extra wicks that I would needed just to make candles for myself, because I can't make these to sell, they're way too heavy. And I also bought one ornament. The only other thing that I got was 2 cat bowls for Hamilton because I was using one of those double ones and he kept dropping his food into his water, and it was really frustrating because I'd then have to wash his bowl after every single time he ate, and he eats like 3 pouches of food a day. But yeah, I got this because I like globes. I do want a like standard globe, but this is really cool. And then like all of the things turn. Is it called like a gyrus something? Does it say what it is? No, it just says that it is made in India and handcrafted. But is it a gyroscope? Is that what this is? I'm gonna Google that. Yes, it's a gyroscope. So I like globes, and then this was really cool, and it has like an arrow through it as well. So I picked this up, and that was the extent of my shopping trip. It was extremely disappointing, but yeah, I'm happy with what I did buy. So the Angel After the Fall Volume 1 comic that I read yesterday, I gave this 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. It took me a little bit of time to adjust into reading this in comic form, just because it is canon and I've previously ingested this story as a TV show. I did have to adjust a slight bit, but I do think that the writers of this managed to keep the voices of the characters. It was a tiny bit off, but overall I thought it was okay. The plot is a little bit weird. Because this isn't the TV show, I'm struggling to accept that it's canon, even though I know that it's canon. So I'm reading this thinking like, oh, this is a wild twist to take, as opposed to this being like, no, this is actually what happens to the characters. I don't like the art in these. In my rating system that I use, which is Corpile, the rating system that was created by G from Book Roast, I will link it down in my description box. I always get asked questions about how I rate my books. But there is one category in that which is for atmosphere, so you rate the atmosphere of the book. So when I rate a manga or a graphic novel, I switch atmosphere for the art style, and that was the lowest mark on here. I think I gave it a 4 for art style. And I think one of the problems is that the characters have to represent the actors that play them. Like, I don't think that looks like David Boreanaz, but because of that, some of the art is less detailed so that they don't have to actually fully make it look like the actors. That's just my kind of assumption, what I'm guessing is the thing in here. The plot made me a little bit sad because of what happens to some of the characters, but yeah, overall I did enjoy it, and it did end on a big cliffhanger, so I will be picking up the next volume to see what happens. The only other thing that I have to say about this is that I was wrong about the timeline of it. This does not start directly as the last episode ends. It is a couple of weeks or a couple of months after that, where the events of the end of season 5 have kind of settled in, and the characters are now having to deal with what's going on there. That is my 3rd book down for the Bookoplathon. So I have read these 3 books this week, which I'm really proud of, because I thought that I would maybe be able to read Warbreaker and then maybe half of When Life Gives You Mangoes. I haven't read anything still aside from the prologue of Ship of Magic, so I'm not going to talk about that at all in this vlog. I'll just catch up with you guys next week on that and let you know what it's about and how I'm enjoying it. 3 books down, 6 to go. We will see how the rest of the month goes. I'm not confident that I'm going to keep this lead. I'm going to try my very best. When I'm done with wrapping up this vlog, I am going to go do some reading. But that that is about it for this week's vlog, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you made it this far, it does seem like a little bit of a long one this week. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys next week for Bookoplathon week 2. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.